Cape Cod Broadcasting weaves the listening environments of 99.9 WQRC, Ocean 104.7, WFCC Classical 107.5, Cape Country 104, and CapeCon.com's website experience to reflect the lifestyles of the people who live, work, and play on Cape Cod. We hope that you enjoy this podcast.
I'm Laura Reckford, and this is Sunday Journal. We're going in-depth on the ballot questions in advance of the November 4th election. In this segment, we're talking about ballot question number 4, which would grant earned sick time to employees. Speaking in favor of the question is Devin Armstrong of Carver, who is the Regional Field Director of Raise Up Mass. Devin, welcome to the show.
Hi, Laura. Thank you for having me.
Devin, why don't we start by having you introduce yourself to the listeners and how you are involved in this issue?
Well, my name is Devin Armstrong. I am the Regional Field Director for Raise Up Mass for the Cape Cod region. I have from Plymouth to Provincetown, which is quite a large territory, but it is a lot of fun because the Cape is my home away from home. While I'm from Carver, since the age of 14, I used to work summers in Wellfleet at the drive-in. So I love the Cape, and I am ecstatic to be working here on this important issue.
And tell us a little bit how you got involved in this issue.
Oh, well, I've always cared about social justice, helping other people, and this is right up my alley. This sets in stone protections for all workers in Massachusetts, part-time, full-time, and really, really helps them, which is so important in this day and age.
And why don't you give us an overview of Raise Up Mass, which I think is the organization that put this ballot question on the ballots?
Yes, we are a coalition of groups. We fought to get signatures for the minimum wage, which we were going to put on the ballot, but the legislator actually passed after we had successfully collected enough signatures. And we still had to pass earned sick time, though. And so we are a coalition of faith communities, labor groups, and community organizations. We're a very broad coalition from all across the state.
And do you have a sense of how many members you have, and in particular, how many members you have on the Cape?
Oh, well, across all the organizations, we have thousands and thousands. Because, again, we partner with so many groups who are so on board with this issue. You can pretty much find people who support us and our group all across the state.
And give us some background on this issue. Why is it coming up now, and why did it rise to the surface now in Massachusetts?
Well, right now, nearly 1 million workers in Massachusetts do not have earned sick time. And actually, right on the Cape here, the average for Massachusetts for workers who don't have access to sick leave is about 31%. But on the Cape, it's 38%, so it's actually higher than the state average. And when the economy is tough and people are struggling just to make ends meet and take care of their families, they need basic protections, and this guarantees that they can take care of their loved ones, their elderly parents, their children, or themselves should anybody become sick, and that is vitally important.
And why did Raise Up Mass go the route of putting this on the ballot as opposed to going through the legislature? You said that they were also in favor of an issue that went to the legislature, and so why did they go this route?
Well, sometimes the legislator might not work as quickly as everybody might like, and sometimes issues are important enough where the people need to kind of make their voices heard and vote at the ballot box and actually ensure protections for themselves and others.
Now, the people against this question argue that small businesses simply can't afford this. What is your response to that?
Well, that's actually very interesting because in Massachusetts, we should be a leader when it comes to these issues, and I wish we could say we're being a leader when it comes to this issue in particular. But actually, our neighbor, Connecticut, passed this about a year ago, and other cities like San Francisco and New York City have also passed this, which actually allows us to look at how earned sick time in these cities and states have impacted businesses. And we've found that in Connecticut, we have had policy research done where businesses report reduced turnover rate, higher employee morale, and increased business productivity. And in San Francisco, it's actually very interesting because surrounding communities did not pass a similar sick leave measure, and they reported higher business growth and employment than their surrounding communities relative to those communities. So we actually have other cities and states we can look to compare how it impacts businesses, and it's been nothing but good results.
And when you say it's been nothing but good results, how have you studied what's happened in those other communities?
Well, again, we look at employment rates, we look at productivity, morale, reduced illnesses, and again, there's been a lot of studies done, and you can look online, raiseupmass.org, and we have links to these studies. And business owners themselves, even some business owners in Connecticut who were opposed to this, who thought it might impact business costs, turned around and said, it is such a below-the-radar issue for us once it passed. It had no negative impact, and it kept their employees happy. And, again, reduced turnover rate, which helps their bottom line year to year.
Now, it would certainly have a financial impact on businesses, though. What have some of your studies shown on that?
At most, studies have shown there has been a 2% increase in cost because this essentially guarantees 40 hours of earned sick time throughout the year, which translates into about 5 to 6 paid days of paid time off. And so it's a very minimum impact. But actually, again, surveys have shown workers who have these protections in other cities and states do not use all the days they earn. And so, again, the impact is very minimal when it comes to business costs. And this actually, for businesses with 10 or fewer employees, the sick time is unpaid. So it has an even more reduced cost when it comes to small businesses. It only impacts when it comes to paid sick leave for businesses with 11 or more employees.
I'm Laura Reckford, and this is Sunday Journal. We're going in-depth on the ballot questions in advance of the November 4th election. We're giving listeners both sides on every question. In this segment, we're talking about ballot question number 4, earned sick time for employees. Devin Armstrong is speaking in favor of the question. Now, we've been talking back and forth about how this impacts smaller businesses, especially in this region, on the Cape particularly. So many of our businesses are small businesses. You said there is this stipulation in the bill. It's different for a business with 10 or fewer employees. But for those businesses, maybe just 10 to 20 employees, I'm sure there are plenty of those on the Cape. How would this affect them? And you said financially you think it doesn't have as much of an effect, but the other side argues that the mom-and-pop businesses are really treated the same as, say, the multi-million-dollar businesses in this bill, and that isn't appropriate.
Well, honestly, this comes down to an issue of fairness. It does treat every worker the same. But when you look at, again, increased morale, reduced turnover rates, the costs balance out because people do not have to hire new workers. They don't have to retrain workers. And I've worked so many jobs in my life where the businesses that employ you and they treat you well, you wake up with a smile on your face, you go into work, and that translates into excellent customer service because you want everybody who walks into the door to know that business is a great business, and you want them to leave with the same smile on your face, and you just want to make everybody love that company as much as you do. And for those businesses that don't necessarily protect their workers as well, they might not have the same motivation to really exceed expectations at work. And so, again, I really, really believe that across the line it translates into more productive workers, which translates into better profits for companies.
And again, and so you're mentioning the morale issue that would help the business in the long run. But I think many business owners, what we heard from the opponents is that they're struggling. The small business owners, particularly, struggling just to make ends meet, and so having this extra cost could really put them over the edge. What does your side say to that?
Well, we actually have a number of small businesses, when they've looked at this, they actually sign on. We have businesses on the Cape. We have everybody from whale watchers to bars and restaurants, coffee shops, bakeries, travel companies, bicycle shops, and so many other small businesses who have endorsed this. And when they look at the policy and they care about their workers, they know this is the right thing to do.
And when you go around to talk to people in the region on this issue, what types of feedback do you get from people?
Well, honestly, I've mostly gotten nothing but positive responses because, again, there's 3 huge areas this touches on. First, it's good for business. It reduces turnover rate, increases worker productivity, and creates a work environment where employees are happy to go into work each day. It's also good for public health. The mass Massachusetts Public Health Association, hospitals, and so many other groups have endorsed this because when you go and get a cup of coffee at Dunkin' Donuts, you want the person serving you coffee to be healthy, not just for themselves, but for your own health. You want to know that children are not being sent to school sick just because their parents cannot take a day off from work to take care of that child. And you want that child to be taken care of. You want your own children to be at a reduced risk of getting ill at school. But, I mean, it's also just good for our loved ones. This protects yourself, and you can go into the doctor if you're sick. It protects your spouse, your loved one. You can take them to the doctor if they get sick. You can use it for your elderly parents if you need to take them to a routine medical appointment, and you can use it for your children. So this is a matter of compassion and common decency for our loved ones, which is hugely important. And when you talk about it, and you really get down to this issue, everybody is on board. I mean, and if I could just take a moment just to mention some of the people who have endorsed this measure in Massachusetts, just so you know what a broad coalition this is. We have the huge interfaith community from everybody from Presbyterian churches, the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Boston. All 4 Roman Catholic bishops just the other day endorsed this. Episcopal churches, Universalists, Unitarians, Baptist churches. It is such a broad community of faith organizations that are on board because they know it's caring for loved ones. We've got labor groups, we've got business bureaus, community organizations from the Youth Jobs Coalition to Massachusetts PTA Association. Everybody knows this is just smart policy, and just this past week, we had 75 Massachusetts economists endorse this measure because they've studied this and they know it's going to be good for business.
Now, that last item with the economists, where could someone go to look at to see that endorsement and what they've said about this?
Yes, we have a link at raiseupmass.org. And you can find it there, or you can just Google question 4 and look for the Economist endorsement. I always encourage people, if you hear me talking about this right now, I obviously want you to vote in favor of this, but I'm a firm believer that everybody should look into these issues themselves. Research it yourself, look online, come to your own decision, and just decide for yourself whether you think this is the right course for Massachusetts. And I really hope you firmly believe that taking care of your loved ones is important.
And in the final minute, any last words you'd like to say on this issue?
Well, again, I think the Cape has a higher than average rate when it comes to workers lacking earned sick time. People might say it doesn't treat, or it shouldn't treat all workers fairly, that the part-time worker should not have the same access to sick leave as the full-time worker. But the part-time workers need this the most. The same person working at McDonald's for 30 hours will get the same hour of sick leave as somebody working for J.P. Morgan. And they need it. They are trying to support their families, and they want to take care of their loved ones and their children. Everybody should be treated fairly and with kindness and compassion.
And unfortunately, we're out of time. Devin, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure being here.
We've been talking about ballot question 4 to give earned sick time to employees. We're hearing from both sides on all the ballot questions in advance of the November 4th election. To hear interviews pro and con on all the ballot questions, as well as interviews with all of the candidates in local contested races, go to our website, capecod.com, and click on the election banner. I'm Laura Reckford, and this is Sunday Journal.
This podcast is a presentation of Cape Cod Broadcasting, which is solely responsible for its content. Thank you for listening. For more information, please visit us at capecodbroadcasting.com.